Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thank you for joining us on the Gold Standard radio show. I'm Jennifer Horn. That is Ken Russo.
He is here.
He is here, checking in for duty, right?
Yes.
And this is going to be a fun one today because even though we are talking about a very serious topic, the calm before the storm.
Yes.
It is always important to point out some of the disasters, some of the hypocrites that are running these big decisions that are impacting our finances. And that is exactly what we are going to do today, Ken.
No, it's a great job. I refuse to believe that. By the way, did you see the sandbag in the hall? You
I tripped over. I took a little tumble, but I got
that would
picked up by a
qualify
few
you
Marines.
to possibly be the United States of America president.
Yes. You know, it's a pretty disastrous thing that we're watching. I was watching, I like to call him Chairman Joe Biden at the White House this week. He was welcoming in the Kansas City Chiefs, after their big Super Bowl win, and they were trying to hand him a football, and he wouldn't take it. He looked very confused, kind of glazy, and walked away. And I thought, you know what? There's obviously someone else carrying the real football around Joe Biden, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Whoever's pulling the strings must be carrying the football because he sure didn't look like he knew what to do with the Chiefs football.
I don't think he's the running back.
That's right. I don't think so. Well, let's jump into it because our financial situation, and we call it a dire situation, what our economy is doing, what the global economy is doing, what the people in charge with all of their overspending is doing, we can all trace back some of this craziness back to Richard Nixon back in 1971, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's when it started. And we're talking every week about the safety of our money, the value of our money, and the privacy of our money. It all starts in 1971 when the dollar was taken off the gold standard. Our dollar's now backed by nothing. Mike.
Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
You hear they talk about that stability, and now today we're probably the most unstable
From
ever.
the top all the way through. That's right. The instability is what has a lot of people a little bit nervous about what the future holds. Do you find yourself, and you may be doing this as you drive around in your car or you're getting your chores done over the weekend, you think, what's going to happen? Can I pay my mortgage? Can I pay for my kids' college? Can I pay for my retirement? Am I going to have the money I need when it's time to get it? And that's why a lot of people are considering adding another layer of protection. CBS News this week had a story, Ken, and it grabbed my attention because we've been sitting together for the last several weeks now talking about Midas Gold Group. And the CBS article says gold is the new safe haven. And of course, I grabbed it and it went through all the reasons that gold makes sense for people. And we'll go through those today. But if you have questions about this, it is vital that you call Midas Gold Group and at least look at the website, MidasGoldGroup.com. Write the number down. We'll give it throughout the show today, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. And I want to tell you this week, Ken, you said, you know what, give out my personal number, Jen.
Yeah, direct number. This way, people want to call me directly. They can, hopefully with nice questions and nice comments. But yeah, give me a call. You don't have to speak to high-pressured salesmen, and we don't have a call center. You speak to traders directly. But this is important. Jen, I had a client today that came into the office, Tony Fox from Moore Park. How you doing, Tony?
Hi, Tony.
And he went to the bank, tried to pull out a little bit of money out of one of the large wirehouse banks. And they said, excuse me, Mr. Fox, we don't have enough hundreds to satisfy your small request.
At the bank?
Yeah. And this is one client, one customer. This is what they do. it just makes you scratch your head and say, is my money really safe? Is it really there? What's really going on with everything? Are the banks safe? Those 3 or 4 banks that failed at the beginning of the year, Jen.
Yeah.
None of them were on the watch list for the federal FDIC.
What does that tell you? So the banks that failed already this year, not even being looked at by the powers that be. There is a list of how many banks?
Well, I mean, they said that there could be 600 banks in trouble over the next reporting in the next quarter. But, how many of these banks are still sitting on billions and billions of dollars worth of losses, right? What kind of accounting are these banks actually doing? It's very shady.
Have they planned for inflation? Because, I mean, these are all the questions that we have to ask ourselves. You don't want to be, well, we all want to be like Tony Fox in Moore Park because he's probably a great guy. But you don't want to have the experience when we all might need our money because there's an emergency and the bank just has to put a shingle up that says gone fishing because they don't have enough money to count out and give to us. And God forbid we're all worried about having FDIC insurance.
Right. And we all know there's not enough. We all know they're as federal as Federal Express. It doesn't make any sense. It seems, to our opinion, another sham. Kind of made me it reminded me of the movie Mad Max with Tina Turner in it.
And we just lost her last week.
And one of my favorites. But it reminds me of the scene. Well, we can play it quick and then we can talk about it briefly.
You think I don't know the law? Wasn't it me who wrote it? And I say that this man has broken the law. Right or wrong? We had a deal. And the law says, bust the deal, face the wheel.
Bust the deal and face the wheel. Bust the deal, face the wheel. Bust the deal, face the wheel. Bust the deal, face the wheel.
Poor Mel.
You know what it makes me think about, Jen?
What's that?
Who's going to be left to face the wheel?
Right. And what are you going to do to protect yourself if you've got to face that wheel, right?
If this system truly, are they going to just print and spend as much as possible until the system collapses? Is that what's going to happen? So who's going to face the wheel? Me and you? People out there that have savings, 401ks, IRAs? Is our money just going to disappear, or is it going to be almost worthless? Who knows? But these are the questions I would encourage anybody to ask themselves and say, hey, maybe I should take a little bit of money out of this banking system, or maybe I should take some money out of this very volatile stock market. I don't really trust what's going on. I really don't understand what's going on. What could I do? And what you and I talk about every week is, well, maybe taking some of those paper assets and converting it to something that you could hold on to.
The paper assets backed by nothing, something you can hold on to. And if things get really bad, you can use it as a currency, right? Not only does gold hold its value, but you can use it if you need it.
Right. I mean, is it going to be apocalyptic time, or is it going to be a smooth transition? Who knows?
We don't know.
We may need gold for money, but you want something that's going to be a store of value.
And this is widely accepted around the globe as well. That's the one thing, the difference between gold and regular paper currencies is that this is something that's accepted all over the place. Like real stuff.
I just happen to have this in my pocket on my way over. This is a 50-gram gold Valcambi combi bar. Looks like a gold chocolate bar. You can break off little pieces. This is beautiful. 50 1-gram squares of gold. So this is a little bit less than 2 ounces in total. And what are we going to need gold for? I don't know. But it's good to have options, and it's good to have something that at least should historically hold its value.
And what's nice is you break the little pieces off if you need them, right? And it looks like the size of a credit card. So it's a gold bar, but it's breakable, and that's pretty cool. All right, so here's what you can do. If you want to talk to Ken this week, he's giving out his personal number, baby. I mean, write this one down. We don't often get Ken Russo's phone number, 480-725-0525. 480-725-0525, MidasGoldGroup.com as well. And always the main number, 855-322-4653. So let's talk a little bit about the calm before the storm, because right now we're sort of in this place where we don't know what's going on. What could the storm be? What should we be preparing ourselves for, Ken?
Well, whatever's coming our way, Jen, it's been building for a long time. And the law has been broken, as we heard in that short little clip. And if we want to, kind of apply that to what's going on, all of our politicians have had something to do with this. There's been decades and decades of recklessness and corruption and spending and promising things to get elected, and it's not going to stop. As we just saw with the so-called agreement with the debt ceiling, and what is that really? Who's winning it? I mean, the Democrats won, the Republicans won, the American people lost.
It's
That's
just
who
a
lost.
messaging game. The American people still lose. We still kick it down. Our financial future gets kicked down
Is
the
it
road.
right? Is it another 4 trillion, 5 trillion,
Right.
6 trillion, 7 trillion? I mean, when are we going to be at 40 trillion? How many unfunded liabilities in trillions are there? 200, 250 trillion? There could be. The debt situation, which was around $900 billion when President Reagan took over in 1980, and then George Bush brought it to 92. Bill Clinton brought it to 5.7 trillion. George Bush Jr. brought it to 10 trillion. Obama brought it to 20 trillion. Trump brought it to 28 trillion. And now we're at 32 or 33 trillion and counting. These numbers are getting exponential. So the question is how does this all end? And I would tell you that you can't create more debt to satisfy a debt problem. I mean, that's what we're trying to do
That's profound.
here.
You can't create more debt to solve a debt problem. Yeah.
Right. So it's going to end either in
Ken
a crash.
Russo for president.
Yes, realistic. It's either going to end in a crash or they're going to print so much money that our money is going to be almost worthless, or it's going to buy a lot less than it buys today. So what could you do about it? Ding, ding, ding. You can diversify, and you can try to move it into something that historically has held its value, keeps its purchasing power, which is physical gold and physical silver.
That's right. And you can buy precious metals, gold and silver. Midas Gold Group is the place, MidasGoldGroup.com. This week only, write the number down. We'll give out the number a few more times because Ken's given out his personal number. That phone is going to start ringing right now.
Might be on a few bathroom walls somewhere.
If you're out at the bar this weekend, 480-725-0525. But what's fantastic about this, Ken, is that people can call. They can talk to you. They can tell you about their current situation, and then you can tell them how to add gold so that they have something they can hold on to that will provide them that safety. And we haven't even touched on the privacy yet. Gold is still a private transaction. So if you're worried about Big Brother watching, gold and silver, precious metals, they are for you. So go to MidasGoldGroup.com right now or call Ken Russo directly, 480-725-0525.
Get ahead of the curve, right?
That's right. 480-725-0525. There is more up ahead. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Yes.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back to the Gold Standard Radio program. I'm Jennifer Horn, joined this week, of course, and every week by my co-host Ken Russo. He is one of the geniuses behind MidasGoldGroup.com. They are veteran-owned. They are fantastic. They want to hear about your situation. No pushy salespeople. And this week, by the way, Ken is giving out his own personal number because he's crazy. And he also wants to talk to all of you. 480-725-0525. That's Ken Russo at Midas Gold, 725-0525. You can always check out the website as well, MidasGoldGroup.com. And Ken, our financial system, it's not just about us here in the United States. It's not just about us in one particular state or city. This is absolutely a global issue.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and that's what makes it so scary. You know, this is not an isolated occurrence where you just say, well, maybe it's just one place or one country. This is everywhere. I mean, we're talking about global debt. Everyone's borrowing. Yeah. Everyone's printing. I mean, in 2000, the global debt was 80 trillion. Now it's over 300 trillion. Wow. So just think about that. $300 trillion of just money. And that's what they're telling us. So how much aren't they telling us? So we mention genius. We mention crystal ball. We don't give financial advice. And listen, I don't think it's a matter of if this is going to happen. I think it's just a matter of when.
That's right.
It can't continue the way things are going.
And people have been talking about this for a while, but everything that was talked about in the past really does seem to be coming to fruition. You found a great clip for us from back in 1990 with George Bush Sr.
Yeah, and it could be about, a one world currency. It could be about a one world government. If everyone's dependent on the government, it's going to be a lot easier to control things. And let's go back to 1990 real quick and see what George Bush had to say.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
So I say we must...
And more government.
Yeah, and more control, and more monitoring, and more printing, and more spending, and more lies and corruption.
This is what is so, and I think a lot of people who are dialed in, if you listen to talk radio, if you listen to the news, you feel like this is not just some bit of speculation. We are really moving around. The people that are running our country certainly want to open up borders. They certainly would love to have one world government, right? They would love to have one world currency because of the convenience that would provide. But what does that really mean? It means that they'd have more oversight into your life. And one of the key elements that I always come back to when we have these conversations is the privacy that precious metals can bring to you, because we don't want to end up like the Canadian truckers speaking out against the big government and have our bank accounts taken away. We want to make sure that the money we have worked hard for is there when we really need it. And that's why it's important to think about diversification and think about those options that still give you a sense of privacy, and precious metals is one of those.
Yeah, and to have control of some of our financial assets, instead of it all just being connected to a system and we don't understand what it is. Is it just digits on a ledger? Is it just numbers somewhere in the metaverse and we're not really quite sure? And it's important because this affects every single American. And this is something that you're not going to hear about from your advisor or your broker. And listen, we understand opportunities. Everything has a right place and a right time. I just feel right now that we're headed towards a situation where we're almost near the tipping point. Something just feels like it's going to happen. Like you mentioned, almost feels like the calm before the storm.
Right.
It's something weird. I was actually driving in the car today, and I always listen to you in the morning, of course. But
I appreciate it on AM 870 in Los Angeles.
But every once in a while, I put on a radio station that'll play the 80s or 90s because I still kind of go back to that era. And it's a station that they don't have disc jockeys. They just have short clips. And a short clip came on, and it said, Federal Reserve System. There's nothing federal about it. There are no reserves. And it's a system that's drowning in debt and failing. And I thought someone sitting in the back seat. I was like, yeah, what? Wow, that's really weird
like,
that I just
AI
heard that.
Talking to me?
So, yeah, you're not AI, are you?
Well,
all right.
You never know.
I read an article the other day that an AI girlfriend made $70,000 in her first week or something, and she wants to make $5 million a month being an AI girlfriend where people can talk. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. Maybe I could be an AI boyfriend. But,
yeah, right. Then we could buy lots of gold.
but it just goes to show you how really out of control and outrageous stuff is.
Yeah.
Outrageous. And there has to be a part of your investment portfolio. There has to be a part of your nest egg, your legacy, that you can't be outrageous with. You got to try and be sensible.
Right.
And you got to try to be realistic. And one of the most realistic things in the history of money going back thousands of years is that gold has been the only form of money that has survived in its original form.
That's right. It stayed the same.
Yes.
And it's accepted, as we talked about. It's accepted pretty much globally. Gold still holds value no matter where you stand on the planet. And that's why I thought it was so funny. I ran across this article on CBS News this week because it says gold has been considered a safe haven investment. It's a reliable store of value. And it's been used for thousands of years and is still valuable in the modern world. This tells you
Are they still a station?
Yeah.
CBS? Yeah.
Hey, you know what?
Do people watch television
Even
anymore?
a broken clock is right twice a day,
Well,
right?
that's right,
So
yeah.
CBS can be a little crazy with their news. But when they're talking about this, with everything that's going on, it underscores that there's a lot of risk out there. And
Yes.
no one's telling you not to take the risk. You should do what's right for you.
There
what's
may
right
be a
for
portion
your
of your money where you can take some risk.
where
but,
you want to.
But why on earth would you take risk with 100% of your paper
Bingo.
assets? Right.
And that's why you really want to do it this week. If you've been listening to us for the last few weeks, if you've been listening to Ken for a while, it's time. Call him. He's given out his personal number this week, so you can call him, talk to him, ask him the questions, give him your situation, because the great thing that I've discovered talking to every person I've met at Midas Gold Group, and I haven't met everybody, but I met a lot of your staff, and everybody seems to really care. They want to hear about where people are coming from, what their individual situation is, what their goals are with their investments. And so this is your opportunity to talk to Ken this week. 480-725-0525. 480-725-0525 or MidasGoldGroup.com. That's MidasGoldGroup.com. We hope that you'll watch the video cast of this podcast, by the way, and share this news with people because it's important. It's important for everyone to take a look at their finances while we still can. The worst thing you can do is have to play catch up when it comes to your money.
Yeah, and who knows how long we have, right?
That's right.
Not everybody has 30 or 40 years to maybe wait for this to all play out. You know, people forget back in 2000 when we had the dot-com situation, NASDAQ went down 80% in 2 years. Now, that took a long, long time for it to come back. After the markets crashed in the 20s, it took 27 years for the markets to come back. So we'll see, but I think people should be out in front of this, Jen. I think they should be prepared and be proactive, not reactive. Now's a good time. It's awfully quiet. It's a good time to think about some things and make a great decision. I just don't see the worst thing in the world having some gold or having some silver in replacing some of your risky paper assets that you may have. I just don't see why that's a bad situation. I actually think that it's going to allow a lot of people to survive what's coming up intact, financially intact, Jen.
Consistency is key. Planning is key. Gold adds those elements to your portfolio right now where you can add that stability, the stability of knowing that you have something that has held its value over thousands of years.
Right.
And
you may
that's
have
hugely
money at the
important.
bank. You may have an IRA. You may have an old 401k. You may have a 457 plan. You may not be comfortable with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars wrapped up in the paper market, bonds, stocks. It's not diversified. We all know that there's a lot of risk to that situation.
That's right.
We're not giving financial advice, but wouldn't it make sense to maybe hedge your bets a little bit, maybe lighten up the load a little bit, diversify a little, and that's what we could help people do.
And certainly, as we've been talking about today, this week, use this calm, this period before what could be a proverbial storm.
Yeah, at any time.
And start doing some investigation. Do your research. There is no harm in checking out all of your options. And we'll give you that number again. Ken Russo graciously opening up his own personal phone line. This is not a gimmick. This is not a crazy voicemail. This is actually Ken
line.
Russo's
Yes.
number, 480-725-0525. That's the number to call, 480-725-0525. And if you want to get some information, start educating yourself on gold and precious metals, check them out. MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com. Don't get caught trying to scramble when the storm does happen. And there's a possibility that it
Makes
will.
perfect sense to me, Jen.
Get on the phone this week. 480-725-0525. That's Ken Russo's direct line, 480-725-0525. Or check out MidasGoldGroup.com. MidasGoldGroup.com. Ken, always a pleasure sitting with you.
You're so easy. I just follow your lead.
You know what? Even if there is a storm, I'd weather it with you.
Too kind. Too kind.
Thanks for joining us this week. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. Thanks for listening.